What's up, everybody? Asparagus with a Gun here from Sleepless Night Studios with another episode on the Sleepless Night podcast thing that I have yet to properly name. So this episode's going to be a little bit more of kind of a channel announcement, but also talking about some stuff, a little more. I wanted to put it into like a podcast kind of thing because updates I feel like I'd like to get to being a bit more, quicker, 5-10 minute videos on like, hey, here's what's going on, and using the podcast stuff to kind of more, in detail, I guess, flesh out kind of some of the thoughts and things that I'm thinking. So first off, I know a lot of you have been wondering about my schedule because I haven't been releasing a whole lot, and for those of you that follow my channel updates know there's been a lot going on off camera, behind the scenes, personally, that has made recording very chaotic, to say the least. So I'm going to address that. The first thing is the new schedule, which should, let me check the calendar thing here, should be starting the 23rd of this month of July, if everything goes well. All of these updates and announcements is kind of the if everything goes well should kind of be a standing clause. So the schedule that I'm thinking of doing, I've been giving it a lot of thought, and I'm trying to balance, I've been trying to balance a lot with the putting out content for you guys to enjoy and to watch and to keep up to date, and like, so it's not once every 2 weeks or something you're getting a random video out of nowhere, but there's a more consistent schedule, basically. But I'm also trying to leave time so that I have enough time to work on some of the project things like Dog Squad, my book. After the book is done, potentially a game, because Caden Red Pearl and I have come up with a couple ideas for our first game that we want to work on, or games, depending on which one we pick, that we want to work on. So there's stuff like that I have to kind of keep in mind, because I am basically trying to, for those of you that don't know, I haven't really advertised this too much, but a lot of people see Sleepless Night Studios on YouTube, and that's like a channel, but I actually do have a business license for it. Like, it is an actual business, and I plan to, hopefully, if everything goes well, kind of put everything under that umbrella. If I release video games, if I release books, or anything like that, I'd like to, like, not necessarily services per se, but consumer products, when it's something that you can purchase and it's not just free content on YouTube or something. I'd still like it to fall under the Sleepless Night Studios umbrella. Hence my book and other things like that would be done under that. So I'm kind of essentially trying to get a business going, per se. Unorthodox business, you might be able to say, which is probably true. It's not like I'm gonna start up a window cleaning business or something. I mean, there is a lot more, less paint by number when it comes to a production company, when you're talking of whether it be novels, movies, games, anything, music, anything that's like creative. There's a lot less of a do this and this works kind of thing. It's a lot more of, well, what's your product and how does it work and who are you marketing it to and all that kind of stuff. So there really, as far as I understand anyway, there's really no paint by number for it. And so some of you know that I've been trying to kind of get something under my feet as a foundation to go, okay, this is a career now. Like, I can do this full time. I don't have to keep splitting my focus and looking in different directions. There was a potential job opportunity that I was pursuing that didn't pan out, so now I'm kind of taking that as indication to really focus on my stuff full bore for probably the rest of the year, and really focus on trying to get my book out and other things like that, and then if none of that really takes off or does well, then reassess at the end of the year kind of thing. So at the moment, I'm kind of trying to this whole schedule upheaval of, there was job opportunities, there was family illnesses, there was my dog, hurting his leg, there was a whole lot of change to routine, And so I kind of took it as a time to step back and really kind of observe and analyze and go, what's worked, what hasn't worked, what do I need to fix, how do I want to fix it, etc. So there's that. So basically, getting into my schedule, I should be, if this works, I should be doing actually more content than I was doing, with a similar amount of time to work on projects. I think I lost a day, but meh. As bad as I am with actually, you have 3 days to work on something, somehow I only get like a day's worth of work put in, and it's not really that I'm bad at time management, it's more that I'm bad at focusing. Like, on paper, I can make a really pristine schedule and budget out a bunch of time, and this is going to take this amount of time. It's sticking to that schedule I find very difficult. So I'm trying to kind of accept that and focus on, okay, you need to stay focused and don't get distracted. So, basically, Monday through Saturday is going to be daily episodes of things, if this works. And it should be, and I don't know if I will take the time to do like a visual presentation thing to explain all this, so if you're not seeing any change in the splash screen, I got lazy and decided not to do it. But basically, Monday is Space Engineers, Tuesday would be Stationeers. I'm moving the Inspiration series to Wednesday, and then Thursday would be Feed the Beast, Friday is Elite Dangerous, and then I'm thinking of bringing back No Man's Sky, and I'll explain a bit more on that in a minute later on in the episode thing or whatever, but that'll be on Saturday. I'm moving the Inspiration series back for a couple of reasons. One, it just worked better. I need that to be a place where I can record it one day and the next day it goes up. That way there's not a huge discrepancy on, I'm showing these builds and you guys are like, well, why didn't he use these two that were way cooler, but they came out like yesterday? Well, he recorded it way earlier in the week. So that's the one that poses the biggest scheduling problem, because I have to fit it into a spot where I can record it and then upload it, like almost immediately. The other ones I can kind of buffer a little bit, where I can record this one on Tuesday and release it on Friday, that kind of thing. And I'm also moving it because I had a couple of people comment on my last either podcast or announcement somewhere where I was asking everyone for their feedback. And one of the things was that I guess there's a couple other channels like, I can't think of them off. I think it's Captain Jack and maybe Last Stand Gamer. I forget which one's or Wasted Space, was it? I don't remember. Anyways, there was a couple of YouTube channels that also do something similar to an Inspiration series, like a showcase. I haven't watched it myself, so I don't really know how they do theirs or whatever, but apparently mine was slightly behind theirs, and so there was a couple of notes that a lot of times things that I feature were already talked about by other people. So it also encouraged me to move it back a little bit anyway. So there is that. Man, excuse me. I've had really bad allergy stuff lately, so my throat and everything is really dry. I've been taking meds and things to try and clear it up, so if I'm clearing my throat a lot, I apologize. But it puts me in a position where I can do, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday would basically be my recording days, and that leaves me Thursday and Friday to work on my book or Dog Squad or whatever. And then it still gives me the weekend to R&R and chill. But then basically what I'm looking at doing, and it should work because I've been, like I said, there's been a lot of change going on behind the scenes, including me personally, my personal habits, my personal life, all that kind of stuff has been kind of in turmoil. Not turmoil, that's the wrong word. Just basically like if you were all like stuck in a routine that you've been in for a long time and then something came along and just kind of like shook up the whole routine, and now you're kind of like, well, that changed, so I might as well look at changing things. So I'm hoping that I'll have a little bit more time now. I've been changing some habits and things of mine, so I'm hoping not to be more productive, basically. And so I'm thinking this will probably work, but it basically, I'll be doing 2 episodes per day of recording. So it basically, in 3 days, you get 6 episodes, and I have 6 episodes per week. So in theory, it should work. It remains to be seen in practice if it'll work that well or not. Because I have been feeling like lately I haven't been able to put as much time into my episodes, and so they felt a little padded lately, where there's a lot of fluff content or grind work that I would like to cut out, but haven't been cutting out. So I'm hoping cramming 2 episodes doesn't continue that trend. I may actually end up shortening them a little bit. If I can. I keep saying that about the Feed the Beast episodes, and I still keep putting out 40-minute episodes. But I'd like to fit them into the 30-minute bracket somewhere in there. So that basically it will... it'll allow me to take less time with recording so that I can afford to cut more of it out, if that makes any sense. I hope that's making sense, but basically if I shorten how much time I need to record footage-wise, then if I have the same amount of time to record, it gives me more wiggle room to cut out fluff. I hope that makes sense. So that'll be the new schedule. Again, it'd be Space Engineers Monday, Stationeers Tuesday, Inspiration Wednesday, FTB Thursday, Elite Dangerous Friday, and then No Man's Sky on Saturday. And I was actually going to talk a bit about Patreon as well, because I feel like that's gone very neglected. I was joking with a friend of mine the other day that I don't even know that I logged in since I've made my Patreon account. So for all of you that are really actually supporting me on Patreon, I really appreciate it, because that means you guys are like the super altruistic people that don't care about getting anything in return. You just want to support, which is amazing. It really is. It's really cool. And also, in case it wasn't apparent, I have a wide range of audience people. I've had people who are young kids that have contacted me through comments. I've had people that were, older than middle age and they're retired and they watch stuff like my Kerbal and stuff like that. And so I have a broad range of spectators and audience members. So if you're in a spot though where it's like, I'd like to, but I can't, don't worry about it. It's that Patreon is kind of just there for people that have it and want to give it. That's very much appreciated, and it does help support and keep things, I'm not in a point right now where it's like, oh, I'm on Patreon so I can, do this full time because it would support me. I'm not, if I'm being honest. It's not to that degree. So using the term like it keeps the lights on, it's a little figure of speechy at the moment. But it does help. Everything helps, and I'm hoping eventually I can get to a point where through Patreon and the Google ads and then my own products and things that it will support itself. It's just not there. But with that said, some people have noted, like, do you have a Patreon? I'm like, I do. I don't push it because I never really felt like I had anything to reward people's support with. And I always felt it would be kind of messed up. Hey, go support me on Patreon. What do I get? Nothing. Yay. It was like, it's not like, hey, you get a free t-shirt, you get this, you get that, it's like there was no real incentive. So I was working on trying to come up with things that weren't really, well, and I came up with this idea too, that part of it was like, what started it was when I started my Feed the Beast series, there was a comment that had mentioned, like, I wish this was a server kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, that would be cool, but I can't afford to run a dedicated, and if I was going to have more than like a couple of people, it would have to be a dedicated server because, I can't, for Baseplay, KG, and Adrian Wannafly and myself, when we're on a server for a series or something, I didn't have a problem running that on my personal computer because they would just text me and say, hey, can the server be up? And I would launch it. But if it's for just anybody and everybody, then it needs to be up 24/7. And I was like, well, I can't afford to do that right now. I'm trying to kind of get things off the ground, not really create more liabilities or more expenses. And then it dawned on me, I was like, well, I don't think I'm using Patreon right, basically. It was like, I had goals in there for, again, self-sufficientness, like, I could support this and do it full time. I had things like upgrading PC equipment and big goals, stuff like that. And I was like, well, why not make smaller goals? And then if we get to that point, then Patreon, like basically it would be communally supported. It's like you guys would be supporting itself. And so I was like, well, that's an idea, kind of thing. So I did some math and I did some pricing and things. And I think I'm going to set the goal. And again, I'm throwing this out there for feedback. So if you guys have ideas, if you like ideas, let me know. If you think it's not great, or if you think you had a better idea, let me know. That's fine. It's all open for feedback. It's schedule too. If there's other series you would rather see instead of something else, let me know. I don't plan on putting more number of episodes in the schedule than what I already have planned. If anything, I'd do less. But as far as which series, I'm tired of that one, or I don't like that one or something, that's open to feedback, always open to suggestions. And the same with Patreon for goals and incentives. If there's something that I bring up and it's like, well, we don't really want that, but we'd want this, I'm always open to consideration of other things, as long as everyone understands that, like I've said before, that just because it's suggested doesn't mean that's what I'll go with. It just gives me an idea of where everyone stands. But I put it at, like, if I get to a goal of $50 a month, then I might start a public Feed the Beast server. And if I get to 100, I might do a Space Engineers server. I say that, and some might wonder, with Space Engineers being predominantly featured on my channel, why would I do that after Feed the Beast? And there is one big reason, and that's that Space Engineers multiplayer is okay. Everything I've seen on it is iffy as far as servers type stuff. Not like running a server, but as far as joining and playing, everyone has some kind of complaint about the net code, whether it's rubber banding, whether it's lag, whether it's rotors breaking builds, whatever it is. Some will be like, yeah, it was great for a while, and then it had issues and blah, blah, blah. But they've had a lot more issues than Minecraft has probably had in recent years. And I mean, it makes sense. Minecraft's been out for longer. Now, being a Feed the Beast server, you do introduce mods, which can introduce some inconsistencies and some issues, but overall, it's still more often than not more stable than Space Engineers currently. However, basically anybody that's been following Keen Software's roadmap, I guess, I don't know that they have one. Anyways, is that their next major update is predominantly focused on multiplayer, and that they've been making some leaps and bounds if the test footage is to be believed. So, with that in mind, I'd be a lot more open to it. So if if we, by the time we get to $50 a month or something on Patreon, if they've already released their update and you guys would prefer a Space Engineers one before a Feed the Beast, whatever, that's what I meant by it's open to suggestion. If I hit 150, then I'm thinking of doing an actual dedicated Feed the Beast server, and 200 would be a dedicated Space Engineers server. And again, for those of you that may not know, most server hosts run multiple servers on the same machine. A dedicated costs you more, but it's like you get one computer per server kind of thing. There isn't other people running their servers on the same tower. So it runs smoother. It's, more performance intensive, that they run better. They can handle more load, all that kind of stuff. So that's some immediate goals. I'm still thinking and coming up with more higher tier past that. If you guys have ideas, let me know. Again, there's already some really high tiers on there that I've had before of getting into more production stuff, but they're not really achievable right now unless something drastic happened. As for incentives, I'm thinking I'm going to switch to the like a dollar a month or something. Basically being a Patreon or a patron would give you access to those servers. Now this is a little iffy, because the price point that I've looked at, if I'm paying around $35-40 somewhere in there for like a Feed the Beast for like FTB, not just a vanilla Minecraft, but like Feed the Beast, you're looking at around somewhere in the ballpark of like 25, 30 slots for the server that it could handle without starting to really cause a lot of problems, supposedly, if all of the information is accurate. And so, obviously, if you had everybody paying $1, you had $50 a month, that's 50 patrons, you wouldn't have enough spots for people to join. That is an issue, and it is a problem that I haven't quite reconciled yet, but my thought process here was basically there are some servers for personal use and stuff like that that you could get for a couple bucks a month, so I didn't want to charge more than what you could go do yourself to run your own server for your friends and things. Now, if you guys don't feel that way, if you're like, no, it's not a problem, we'd rather have a public one with you, blah, 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 I could switch some of these tiers around and make it a little more mathematically make sense, where it's like $5 a month and that gives you service access, and then that would only require 10 people to run a server, and that would be more than, I hope that makes sense. I was just trying to basically not gyp anybody, essentially. And I'm playing around with this. I thought about starting a Discord, and I've seen some people that just have a public Discord and anybody can join. I don't know. I thought about including that as a tier, like for $5 a month or something. You have the server access plus you get the Discord, because I'm not one that really does a lot of community management. So if I'm giving access to, like, you can talk to me directly and stuff like that instead of just comments and messages and stuff, I thought maybe that would be a good idea. But let me know if you guys don't think that would be worth it and stuff, if it would just be a better option to just make that a public and think of something else, then I'm open to that. I was trying to come up with something that I could incentivize people with that didn't put me at another expense type of thing, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. At $10 a month, I was thinking of doing credits, like special thanks to all of the patrons at that level in the back of my book, as well as at the end of all the Dog Squad episodes and stuff, because it would basically help support, as well as a free copy of the book. That's one thing I was going to do. If you're at like a $10 a month tiers, you get free copy of the book, so you wouldn't have to buy it. Again, kind of as a thanks for helping support the channel and everything. At $25 a month, I was gonna start doing some maybe like patron only posts for that tier, for if you were at $25 a month or something, that would do some behind the scenes things, maybe concepts arts for new book stuff, or sketches or planning and stuff like that for Dog Squad episodes, or if I started working on a game or something, there'd be like concept arts and drafts and things for ideas, stuff like that. And then at $50 a month, I'd actually start doing previews. And what I would mean by that is, like, say, when it's at least mostly done, or in a draft stage, maybe releasing the drafts of my first chapter in my next book, or what was the other thing? Oh, like the first episode of the next season of Dog Squad, or stuff, maybe something like, I don't know if it would be doable. I'm not necessarily apprehensive of doing it. I just don't know if it would be not feasible, if it would be possible to do, but maybe like the first level of a game, if I was making a game, things like that. And I'm looking for other higher tiers too, stuff like I've thrown around, those are the only solid ones I have. The other ones are more concepts. I've thrown around the idea in the back of my head, though, of something like, if you hit, I don't know, $75 a month or something like that, maybe doing something like a limited like physical run of the book, where it actually has a hardcover and all that kind of stuff, and then that would be given out to patrons, or maybe doing signed copies, something like that. I tie it back to my books, Dog Squad, and any video game stuff that are content that I'm making, because again, those are tangible. Doing stuff with YouTube is hard in terms of, like, I don't know how to do like, oh, you get free access to videos that everyone already has access to. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't, I did play around with the idea of releasing Dog Squad via Netflix style for a certain tier, like the $5 a month or something. Was, you get basically like where the first episode aired, maybe even like early episodes for that series, like a week before they come out for the public, is, you guys at a certain tier could get the whole season, and then it's like, if you really wanted to, you could have binge watched the whole season by the time the public episodes go live for the very first episode, something like that. Again, kind of coming back to trying to find something that I can give that you guys would be interested in, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to mention all of this in the podcast, is kind of let me know if any of this kind of stuff would interest you, or if it's like, well, I came here kind of for the YouTube stuff and things, so I'm not planning on doing anything with your book, so that doesn't really interest me, or vice versa. If it's like, yeah, that would be awesome because I'm really looking for whatever. Eventually, again, I'm spitballing ideas, and it's an ever-changing beast. I can always go in and change tier goals and or tier incentives and goals and stuff like that. Eventually, I could throw in something like at a certain tier, maybe doing live chats, live podcasts. I don't know, for patrons only. See, part of it is I don't know how to do some of that. I don't know how to restrict things to patrons only. There was one suggestion I read online that somebody did where it was like patrons at a certain tier, like $1 or $2 a month, don't have ads on their videos. And I was like, that would be awesome. I've looked it up. I've Googled it. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to disable ads for this group of people. I don't know if there's a way in YouTube and Google to like make a special link or something to where it's not a monetized link. I don't know if you'd have to upload it twice. I don't know how that would work. But if I could figure out a way to do that, I really would like to do that. It, like the 1 or 5 tier, something low, but something like that a month. On Patreon, you'd get the videos ad-free, and if I could figure out how to do that, if I could find a way to do that, I may not feel as bad about adding a couple more ads, like maybe one in the middle of my episodes or something like that. I've always felt bad about doing that. Because right now there's no way around it. It would just be kind of like, hey, I'm just throwing more ads at you kind of thing. And I know some people do it a lot, and if you guys are more okay with that and you wouldn't mind a few more ads or something, let me know, because I may add them anyway if everybody's okay with it. But I would like to do something that if you're paying to support me on Patreon, to me it's kind of like YouTube Red and stuff like that. It's like you're paying already. It's no longer a free service. So then, I would totally be down to remove the ads and stuff for patrons and things like that. So those are some of my ideas that I've come up with. I am super open to you guys' feedback if you have ideas for, this sounds cool, but I think this would be better, or I think this would be something I'd be more interested in, and all that kind of stuff. Again, just keep in mind that I may not go with it, but it's just something that if I get a bunch of people that are telling me the same thing, then I go, okay, that's what people want. If you get one person saying this and a bunch of other people saying something else, unfortunately, the one person's probably not going to get what they're looking for. Unless it just lines up with what I wanted to do in the first place. But, so it's a slippery slope, content creation and production, because in one respect, I do believe you have to be true to yourself and what you want to do and what you feel is the right thing to do. Like in storytelling and writing a book and stuff like that. At a certain tier, I've thought of that at like, if you get to a certain tier a month, maybe adding to where you guys could give me suggestions for the book because you would have read the previous chapters and things, or game development. Again, I'm using my book as an example because it's the only thing I'm working on actively right now. But I haven't decided. A lot depends on how the book's received and how well it does commercially and financially. But I haven't really decided whether or not I'll jump in and do another book right after that, or if I'd start working on a game. I'm kind of mixed at the moment, and I'm kind of in a wait and see to see what happens with the book. But like I said, though, it's one of those, I keep using it as an example, but basically any incentive that I come up with for my book, like behind the scenes previews, early access, not early, I hate that term. I'm not doing early access stuff. I despise that term with a passion. That's one thing. I would not mind doing a Kickstarter, and for those that supported you, you'd get access to a beta or something like that. But this epidemic of early access to me is just, I could do a whole podcast on why it's a terrible thing for the gaming industry as a whole. I mean, I've been a gamer since I was like 8, and I've obviously never paid for all of my stuff, because as a kid, your parents buy you things for Christmas, or you get presents for birthdays, or whatever. You're a kid, you don't have money. But as I got older and stuff and started paying more attention to the economy side of gaming, I honestly have seen nothing but negatives from the way that early access has developed and things that, in my opinion, I mean, it's all my opinion and perspective, but I see it as a stigma and a blight on gaming. And Caden Red Pearl and I have been best friends for a really long time, and we've always planned on working on books and games and stuff together. So much so that he has not really helped me write my book. My book is something that I did as standalone as my own project. However, it does take place in the same universe that we co-created. It would be considered I don't want to get into too much revealing stuff just yet. For now, maybe I'll save it for a Patreon tier. That's gonna become a joke. Yeah, new Patreon tier. But, and truth be told, stuff like that. Maybe I would have more open talks with some people that were more interested in my book and my storylines and things like that, and do a bit more behind the scenes where you could ask questions and I could try and explain more stuff that I wouldn't do in a public video or a podcast kind of thing. As another idea. Eventually, and grant you, I'm super controlling. I will fully own this and admit this. I'm super controlling over, what I put out, my content that not necessarily my Let's Plays and things, but Dog Squad and my books and things. I'm super picky about doing it the way I want to do it. So much so that Caden and I have always joked that would be the problem if somebody like Marvel or Disney ever approached us hey, we really like your story. It became the next big thing. We'd like to make a movie on it. We always joke that we'd have too many restrictions on what they would have to do and keep and stuff, because I've honestly seen so many stories that were great books, and then they do a movie on them, and they change things, and there's no real reason to change them. Certain things I understand don't translate from a book to a movie. One thing, for example, is thought. If a character's thinking something and you're reading it from their point of view, it's very difficult to translate that to a movie of how do you express what they're thinking. Anime does it sometimes where it's basically just voiced over kind of thing, which is one approach. But Hollywood blockbuster movies don't do it very often. So a lot of times they'll change scenes, they'll add a character, and they'll have a conversation where some of that comes out. I get that. It makes sense. Stuff just things here's an example. One that kind of ruined the franchise for me was Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, right? Or Half-Blooded Prince, whatever it is. One example of this is, for a spoiler alert, I mean, I guess, in case you haven't seen or read the books, but in the books, when, certain wizard character dies. Okay, you're done. The spoiler warning's over if you missed it. So when Dumbledore dies, in the book, Dumbledore paralyzes Harry and throws the cloak over him, and the book describes it from Harry's point of view as he's tormented and trying desperately to move and to fight back and to protect Dumbledore and help him, and he can't, so he has to sit there and watch him. It depicted a very different character in the movie when he's go downstairs, and he basically goes downstairs and looks up through the floor and just watches it all happen and does absolutely nothing, and there's nothing holding him back. It fundamentally ruined the character for me, in all honesty, because by that point in the books, Harry was way more beast. He was more aggressive, he was a better fighter, he was way more open with bring it, Death Eaters, and we'll go toe to toe. So because of that, because movies often change things in books, well, just change things in general. When they change hands from the original authors and creators to a movie studio, things change. It happens all the time. And because of that, Caden and I were always super leery of ever letting anyone else have any kind of control over our stories. So, that was a very long-winded way to get to the point. The point was, there is a part of me that thinks if you hit a certain tier, but it would have to be pretty high. I'm not going to lie. It would have to be pretty high on the Patreon support tier, is eventually adding up a way for you to maybe name a character or make your own character that we would add into a story, a book, a game, something like that, or an NPC in a game, a quest giver in a game, something like that. Games I'm a little bit more open to. When it comes to the storylines in our books and stuff like that, those are a little bit more, Caden and I have been working on them since we were like teenagers, and in the interest of, well, at the expense of aging myself, we're not teenagers anymore. And so we've been working on them for a very long time, and they're very kind of like near and dear to our hearts kind of thing. And so that's why I'm really apprehensive about releasing the book. But I mean, if you never release it, no one ever finds out about it, so it does you no good to tell a story. So I hope everybody really appreciates and enjoys them and really gets sucked into the lore in the world, because we really have tried to spend a lot of time and focus on details and things. I mean, we're two people, so you know, there's gonna be things that we'll probably miss, and as much as him and I both hate inconsistencies in stories, we try to stamp out inconsistencies in our own stories with a passion. Even to the extent of Dog Squad. It's a funny slapstick series, but I've worked on Dog Squad a lot of trying to make sure, okay, does that make sense? Would that make sense in the world? Can I tie this back into the lore? I mean, I'm not joking. As silly and as goofy as the story is, I really do try and make sure all of the implications and lore and, you know, everything stays consistent. So, that much more so with a project that we've worked on for, over 10 years, you know, of putting time and thought into stuff. So, you know, so I can't guarantee what kind of a tier range it would be in, you know, who it would be for and who could afford it kind of thing. But I think at a certain point, if you're supporting me enough, and you're supporting the company and the channel and all that kind of stuff and our projects and productions enough, yeah, it's earned, it's deserved at that point that you could say, you know, sure, you've helped enough, you basically helped fund a lot of this stuff, so sure, you know, we'll go ahead and make a character for you or fit it in somewhere in a storyline, something like that. So those are ideas that I have for Patreon. Again, I can't express this enough that I'm super open to feedback. I may not do a lot with it, depending on what it entails, but I'm very open to hearing you guys' thoughts. Now, one thing I did want to touch on for wrapping this up, because this is getting a little bit on the lengthy side, is No Man's Sky. This kind of came out of the blue, honestly, and I'm being very honest about that. I had not included it on my schedule. I wasn't planning on doing it. And it was probably 2 days ago. I don't know, well, maybe 3, depending on when you guys see this episode, whenever this goes up, but 2, maybe 3 days ago, that they actually announced the official next trailer. And by that I mean the actual update titled Next. I realize every time I'm saying next, it just sounds like the next one. But for those of you that keep up with No Man's Sky, it's like the update titled Next type of thing. And there is a ton of changes to the game. So much so that now, if I'm seeing it correctly, and I read the changelogs correctly, we're getting character customization. I almost said creation. Customization. Possibly playable races instead of one single race. Expanded base building, expanded base limits, actual multiplayer, and third-person cameras for both on the ground and in space. Player fleets, apparently, I think was mentioned at some point, though I don't know to what extent any of these features are going to be. There's a lot of things, like people don't know how parties will work and stuff like that. If you party up, will it be like will you jump across the universe, or like how does that work? And the trailer showed some of this off, but it didn't really explain it. There hasn't, as far as I know, there hasn't been like a dev interview or anything that kind of explains some of these features. So some of that's still a little on edge as far as like not really sure. But and then I happened to look at, well, I was like, yeah, but when's this update coming out? Because it could be months. And they said it was July 24th? Yes, July 24th, I believe. And it lined up perfectly with what I was thinking, because next week, the 23rd, is when I'm going to start my new schedule, my new channel schedule. So I was like, well, this is a perfect time to add it back in. There's new update, there's new content, there's new stuff. Then I got an idea. I said, well, the patch goes live on Tuesday. I was going to record it on Wednesday anyway, as you can refer back to the schedule I mentioned earlier in the episode of recording it on Wednesday and it releasing on Saturday. And I got thinking about it, and I was like, well, if I'm going to record it Wednesday, that gives me a 24-hour period where the patch will have gone live. They can work out or note, like find out about any bugs and things like that. They can patch it. If there's any delays in the patch, it'll already have happened. It won't be like, you know, okay, I'm waiting to record it at like midnight and it doesn't get patched till 5 in the evening or something like that. Because that kind of stuff happens. I used to want to do things the day something came out, like day one. I've really gotten to where I don't like doing that anymore. I like to do it the next day, because sometimes there's delays. Like I said, sometimes you're like, I'm going to play this all day, and it doesn't, the patch doesn't come out till in the afternoon. Sometimes there's delays where they don't get it done. Sometimes they get it done, but then they find a bunch of game-breaking bugs and they have to work on another patch, you know, little things like that. Again, kind of see the early access thing, that's kind of what gaming's turned into, is something goes live and then they fix it. They basically adopted the Windows policy of releasing for most gaming, which is you release something, you wait for everybody to tell you what's wrong with it, and then you fix it. It's kind of how Windows does. But so anyways, my point to that was, rather than recording it and going, I'm recording this and then you'll see episodes on Saturday, I got the idea, since I'm kind of coming back and I've got a new schedule and a whole lot of newness going on, what if I live streamed it? And I thought to myself, well, I never really did a 10,000 subscriber live stream. The patch will be super popular probably for those that are still playing and bringing in people that were kind of like, I'm done with it, but see a bunch of new stuff. So I thought it would actually be a good kind of all-in-one kind of thing, and then I'll either put up the VODs, like break it up for how, you guys know me, I don't stream for a crazy long time. I'm not one of these 12-hour stream persons. Frankly, if I'm being honest, I have a lot of sinus issues, and so I take a lot of meds for that, and it dries my throat out. You probably are hearing my throat sound kind of raspy just after this, and it's 45 minutes. So there is that. So I don't stream a lot because it wears my voice out. And frankly, with my schedule and everything, I don't always have 12 hours that I can just sit and stream and don't have to like do something with the dog or watch him because my parents have to go do something, which means somebody has to watch the dog, or little things like that. There's usually enough going on. That's why I like recording, is because I can pause, cut out things if I had to abruptly stop playing. You know, I can always go back and trim the footage and stuff like that, and I can't do that when I'm live. So I'm thinking 2 to 4 hours is probably what I would stream. I can't promise any more than that. Frankly, I can't even promise that. I'll probably just have to play it by ear and see what I can do. But I am thinking of live streaming it. Let me know what you guys think about that, if you would enjoy a stream. Also, part of the reason I thought about streaming was the multiplayer side of it, that I don't know how it'll work, and since it comes out the day before, it'll give me time to look into how the multiplayer mechanics work and stuff, so when I stream, I could probably explain a bit more. But I thought about opening it up as far as, not like a Discord or a Skype chat or something like that, but if you were tuning into the live stream and wanted to join me or something, and I don't know how it'll work, but if you're able to join based on how the multiplayer functions, if you're around the area kind of thing and want to join up and play, it would be an interesting opportunity to do that, where we kind of have like an interactive community stream type thing. It'd be kind of fun to do some multiplayer stuff. So there is that. That was the other reason I was thinking. So it all kind of lined up that it was like the week I was coming back with a new schedule. There's a whole new patch. There's now multiplayer. I never did a 10,000 subscriber stream like I said I was going to. So there's a lot of different elements that kind of seemed like they all jived and worked together. So I thought it would be a good idea. So again, I'm kind of bringing it up now, and hopefully this episode will go up probably, I'm hoping tonight. It might be late, but I'm hoping it'll be up tonight. If you're seeing it Wednesday, it was tonight. If you're seeing it Thursday, it was not. So, there is that. So let me know what you guys think about that, if you'd be interested, if you think that'd be a cool idea, if you'd be interested in seeing more No Man's Sky. Every now and again I get people that'll comment and say, are you going to come back to it because they've changed a lot? I know there was a bunch of patches like Atlas Rising and things that added new story. I don't even know where I was with the story. I think I finished, air quotes, the game, but I honestly don't remember where I left it. I don't know how the new story content would tie into an existing player who already went. Like, I know nothing. I kind of beat it, and I moved on to other things, and I never really went back to it, to be quite honest. I was one of the few people, I'm going to say this, it might catch some flack. I was one of the few people that didn't really have a problem with it. I thought it was, I did feel the game was repetitive in its gameplay loop, but I don't really feel like that was false advertising on their part. They never really said it wasn't going to be a repetitive. It was like, you'll go to procedurally generated planets. Procedural generation can get repetitive. You're gonna mine. Anybody who's played Minecraft knows it can get repetitive, you know. So the way I looked at it when they were, because I followed all the E3 coverage and stuff and all the dev interviews and things before it launched, and I honestly give a lot of the flack that they took from it from misinformation and false hype. And again, this is my perspective on it. If you don't agree, then that's cool. I mean, I'm just calling it how I see it as far as when I was observing everything. It's just what I saw. It's like when people said, we're finally getting the multiplayer we were promised. I was like, I don't recall them ever promising that. In fact, all the interviews I watched during E3s when they were announcing the game said they didn't think it would be possible because they weren't sure how to rectify so many planets and so many players at once, that they really didn't know how they would do it. So then when everyone was all up in arms about it not being there, I was like, but they said when they announced the game that they didn't think they could pull it off, so why are we mad about it? So, again, maybe there's some interview that I missed where they did claim about it. Maybe there's something that I misheard. I don't know, but for me, everything that I heard, it came out about the way that I heard it was going to come out when it launched. I was like, yeah, I mean, it's a little repetitive more than I expected, but I wasn't really expecting it to be some great big, you know, dual universe or Star Citizen kind of thing where it's this massive multiplayer world kind of thing. And so I've always been happy when they've added new stuff, when they added freighters, when they added base building, all that kind of stuff that they originally said at E3 when they announced it, that they didn't think they could pull off. One of them in particular was base building because they said we didn't know the planets unload when you leave, so we didn't know how to keep the buildings there. So that right there told me there wasn't going to be base building. And when everyone's like, where's the base building? I was like, where are you guys getting this from? So I was very confused by all the backlash. I will be 100% honest. I was very confused as to why everyone was so bent out of shape over it when it came out, because I was like, where are you guys getting this stuff? Because I watched all the coverage. I watched all the E3s. I watched the dev interviews with Sean Murray and stuff. I was like, I don't remember him saying any of this stuff you guys are claiming that he... And I say you guys, I mean all the people that are upset about it, not you guys that are watching this. But, you know, and I mentioned it to Baseplay. I was like, am I off on this? And he was like, I don't think so. He goes, I heard a lot of the same stuff, but it's the internet. Who knows, you know? So I don't know. But I'm kind of excited to see what they do with it, but I haven't actually gotten back into it, so it seemed like a good time. So let me know what you guys think of that idea for live streaming and bringing it back on a regular basis and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up. I don't want this to go too much longer. It's already a little lengthy. So I think that'll do it for the most recent podcast episode. I'm probably not going to put it on this one, but in the start next week with the start of my new schedule and everything, I do think I'm going to start trying to include an end screen with links and stuff like that, because I've been seeing a lot of that as a trend of, like, it's a good idea to keep people engaged and stuff and keep people focused on other things that you've done on your channel and stuff, so I'm going to try and do that. Also, apparently you guys need to start clicking on the little bell icon if you want notifications. I thought that was a bunch of hullabaloo. Apparently not. So that's another button you have to click to keep up with all of my stuff, according to YouTube, because apparently that was a good idea. But yeah, I'm going to wrap up this episode here. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, leave a like. Click on the bell button, I guess. I got to figure out how to add that into my outro now. And I will see you all next time. Peace.